Well, good evening, hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, as you join us for round 3 of the Northern European Esports Masters Clash of Nations. My name is Zach Sweeney, stepping in, of course, for the usual Luke Crane this evening, and I, for one, am absolutely stoked to be here. We've got 8 nations from across Europe battling for the Clash of Nations crown and €12,500 in cash prizes. We'll get to that in just a little bit later on. Let's take a quick summary as to how the championship itself is going to run. GT4s here on iRacing, 8 nations, 6 rounds, and as I say, €12,500 in cash prizes to be dished out in a number of different ways. So a lot of money, and of course the prestigious crown of the NEEM Clash of Nations champion. Moving on though, let's take a look as to how they got here, because we've got some of iRacing's absolute best on the roster. As you can see, the 8 nations that we've got: Finland, Germany, Iceland, Luxembourg, the lighter of the 2 flags, with the Netherlands just after. Then we go to Norway, Sweden, and the UK. 8 nations, as I say, across Europe, the regions of Scandinavia as well, battling out for the sort of, I suppose, their own little bit of pride amongst themselves. So yeah, should be an absolute amazing little bit of fun. But yeah, obviously moving forward, you know, these 8 nations, they've all had themselves their time trial to get themselves into the championship. They've been battling themselves out and, you know, fighting their way into the races. Of course, as I say, we're into round number 3, so we'll bring up the screen to sort of talk you through it, because it takes a little bit of understanding to sort of, you know, wrap your head around. There you can see, obviously, so we've got the time trial per nation, so each nation on a separate day have ran their own time trial around the circuit that we are at. Say, for example, 100 people take part in the time trial for the UK. It's the top 2, so P1 and P2, that set the fastest lap times. They represent the UK for Tier 1, and then it's the next 20 percentile, so it'd then be P21 and P22 that then represent Tier 2, P31 and 33 that represent Tier 3. That's going to be the grid for today, and then obviously 4 and 5, which work a little bit differently and run on a different day, but all accumulate to the same championship. Then they move themselves over to today, the Clash of Nations, that take part once per month. As I say, we're on to round 3 of 6. We've then got Tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which all take part on track. Well, Tier 1, 2 and 3 do. 4 and 5 do their own separate one as well. And as I say, the points tally for each of the nations get accumulated. That then goes towards both the drivers and the nations championship total. And there you can see on the far right the rosters and the prestige, the prizes they can get: the National Drivers' Championship, the overall Nations Championship, and the highest scoring nation wins the crown of the Clash of Nations and gets themselves a nice little bit of prize money. Let's talk a little bit about money, because there's a lot of it on offer. The time attack alone, €10,000 on offer, 1,250 for each nation. Yeah, there you can see it's all dished out. So for the time trial, if you win each of the time trials, if you set the quickest lap time in each of the time trials, it's going to be a slam dunk. You're going to take the victory in the time attack championship individual for each nation and get yourself €120 in your back pocket, which is definitely nice towards the end of the year. It means you can treat yourself to a nice Christmas present for yourself or whatever. 80, 70, all the way down to the top 50 in the championship. Of course, the standings themselves are based on an aggregate across all 6 of the time attacks, which then obviously accumulate themselves into that. There you can see in the bottom as well for the Clash of Nations, $2.5 grand goes to the winning nation. So, you know, whoever comes out on top of the 6 rounds in terms of cumulative points across all of the tiers gets themselves that $2.5K prize pool, which they can then dish out however they please. And well, it's quite a bit, decent chunk of change. Again, fundamentally, for what is essentially pretend race cars at the end of the day, $2.5 grand and $12.5 grand in general is quite a little bit of money. We've spoken about the individual rounds. Let's move over and talk you through the calendar and the dates. Of course, we've already had rounds 1 and 2 over the course of May and June at Spa and Roscogen. We're here today at the Hockenheimring for round number 3 to round off the halfway point of the season. Rounds 4, 5 and 6 will take place later on in the year, very close to Christmas round number 6. So the prize money will be very much appreciated, and we'll be announcing what the next venue will be going for round 4. So stay tuned to the end of the stream and the end of our amazing championship race that we've got here at the Hockenheim. And we've talked about standings. There they are, the Netherlands taking a firm grasp on the championship, going towards the tail end of the halfway point, beating out Germany and Norway in 2nd and 3rd. The United Kingdom, not a million miles behind on 580. You can see they're only 29 points back on Norway, but it doesn't matter if you're second, third, fourth, or fifth. You've got to be in the victory and take the victory in P1 in order to get that 2.5k prize pool. So as it stands, the Netherlands looking very pretty. Then comes Luxembourg, Finland, Sweden, Iceland to round off the 8 nations here for the Clash of Nations. And there you can see we're at the Hockenheimring. The weather conditions themselves are just going to be, your bog standard, nice. Overcast, not too hot, not too cold, nice track temps that shouldn't be too big of a factor. The tyres aren't going to be overheating too much. Of course, you can see we're in the GT4 machinery here on iRacing. 40 minutes of race length in store for us, so, not quite a sprint, but, not really an endurance race of sort of that grey area in between. So a 40-minute battle all the way to the end. Along the way, though, they do have to take a mandatory 4-tyre pit stop. No fuel, we're being told. They should be okay to get to the end of the race, but 4 tyres will definitely play a factor because, essentially, when do you take them? When is going to be most beneficial for you to come in, take that fresh set of boots, and be on your merry way? Fix it up, of course, so no advantages for those in big-level esports teams. This is a very much raw-based championship. These guys, no one's getting an advantage by being a nice little tech wizard and tweaking all the millions of different things that you can do in iRacing. Everyone's on the same setup. They're all ready to go. Everyone essentially is equal and no fast repair. So if you mess up, you've messed up, and there is essentially no chance of you fighting your way back. So making sure that being clean is definitely going to be the name of the game. And, well, at a circle like the Hockenheimring, that is definitely easier said than done. We're towards the tail end of our practice session, and we'll head our way into qualifying in a few moments' time. There you can see me in the bottom left. If you do want to go and follow me on Twitter, you're more than welcome to, ZachSweeney19. But welcome into those that are tuning in on the NEEM YouTube channel. It's a pleasure, of course, to have you alongside me. Do keep me company. It'd be lovely to hear from you in the YouTube chat and things. I don't bite. Luke has told me not to. Give us your thoughts, feelings, queries, questions, whatever tickles your fancy. But we have got just over half of qualifying left to go. You can see Aaron Oscarson, as it stands, in P13, so would like to improve upon his time. He's, of course, in the McLaren 720S. You can see there, it's Ford setting the benchmark time of a 1 minute 45.4, a very respectable lap time and only 25 thousandths of a second clear ahead of Meyer. So already proven to be an incredibly close qualifying session towards the top of the timesheets. Aaron Oscarson, though, he himself will be running his way through the Parabolica, looking to set his quick lap time if possible. It does help to go quick in qualifying. It sets the grid order going into that all-important 40-minute race. We've got Mahler as well down in Tier 3, representing his country of Norway. And we'd like to be getting Norway some decent points going forward as well, because they are there in third in the championship. And, well, a lot of points on offer if you're able to score well. The way the points work, by the way, as well, it's not Tier 1, 2 and 3 get their own point standings. It's basically P1 down to P30, and the higher you finish. So in theory, Marley, even though he is in Tier 3, could win the whole event and get the maximum number of points even though he's in Tier 3, if you understand what I mean. So instead of P1 to what would it be, however much it would be for each of the three, to say P1 to P10 for each of the tiers, it's instead just P1 all the way down to P30, one continuous point system that will then be awarded depending on where they finish. So I think definitely the better way to do things, because it gives those in the Tier 2, Tier 3, if they can benefit off some chaos that happens in the higher up tiers, they can then benefit from a nice couple of extra points. They're not capped by their tier, they're capped by the race itself. So yeah, that's always an interesting little bit of information to delve into, and all of them will be liking to maximize their points. At the moment, it's Nicholas Laubich who is leading the way in the time sheets, which is good, because here on home turf you'd like to impress, and he himself is narrowly ahead as it stands of Samuel Ward of Sweden. It's going to take me a little bit of time to sort of get to know everyone. A couple of these guys I am familiar with, have commentated on them prior in my commentary career, but a lot of these guys are very new to me. I'm sure I'm very new to a lot of you guys. So I am looking forward to sort of learning everyone's names and things, and learning where they're all from, how they're getting on and things. But absolutely, I'm stoked to be here. Gavin Kelly, you can see, I'm going to guess he's from the Netherlands based on the very prominent Dutch flag that's on the top of that Mercedes, and the fact it's orange as well definitely doesn't help. We've got Tvan, oh my goodness me, all the names as well are going to be a bit of a shock. We've got Tim and Klaus in my ears, probably going to very quickly correct me on this one, but it's probably Volbrecht. Oh no, I'm not even going to attempt it. I'll let him. I'll let Volbrecht. I've been told. There we go. Thank you very much. Yeah, names and things, especially as an English commentator, are always one that's very interesting because yeah, we just don't do anything that isn't English. Obviously in the nicest way possible. If it's very difficult for us to get accents and things down and to pronounce different names, which as a commentator you'd think I'd have is a skill I'd have quite well. Not when it comes to the Dutch, because yeah, so many different syllables and croaks you need to make with your voice, and it is just complicated. And then of course you give it a go, and then they very quickly tell you it's wrong. There's a driver named Shores Oyser, and Oyster is spelled Euser. So I thought that's a complicated name. I'm going to ask some of my Dutch friends to sort of help me and give me a name, and they said we can't. Yeah, we can't tell you how to pronounce that because we don't even know ourselves. So it is a little bit difficult. I'm going to get there. Just going to take a little bit of practice and maybe a little bit of laughter along the way from Team and Klaus, who's probably going to correct me a number of times on my pronunciation. But it's fine because I doubt Luke is any better either. We've had a number of times where we've worked together before where we've come to blows with how we pronounce different names. It's always good to give it a go. However, Philip Ansel heading out onto track for some reason, because there's only 1 minute 40 left in the session, and in iRacing you have to finish your lap within the allotted time of qualifying. There's no, if you start your lap you can finish it. Nah, as soon as that timer ticks 0, that is it. Session is done, over in the books, and we'll be on our merry way. So those that are on a lap now, this will be their final run through in qualifying. So for the likes of Ward, Forts, Meyer, Tienan as well, they're all going to be trying to push their way forward and try get after Nicholas Laubish for that pole position. But as it stands, he's got a very decent grasp, nearly 2/10 ahead of the 114 of Ward, who he could get himself up, but it's going to take a lot of effort. Daniel J. Thomas in the 115, not yet able to set a lap time in qualifying, so really putting the pressure on late on. This is not what you really want to see because, again, having that bank lap time alleviates some of the pressure and allows you to push. Running his way through the Mobil 1 curve, going into the Sachs curve, to be honest, one of my most favourite corners on this circuit. The way it cambers on the inside, the way you carry your speed through, and then work your way into the final couple of corners through the S's, and then into the double right-handers here at Sud Curve. Daniel Thomas looking clean, looks tidy in his Mercedes AMG. Is it going to be enough in order to see him up anywhere decent on the timing tower? Got to be very careful of the track limits excursions on the left-hand side. Across the line, what is it going to be for Thomas? Not quite seeing it. P12 across the line, not too far away from a top 10 either, just over 1/10 of a second in reality, down to Neno. So not a bad shout at all from Thomas. Qualifying itself has drawn itself to a close, so we'll talk you through the grid order in its entirety, and we'll be raring to go, ready for the 40 minutes of racing here today. There is the grid. Nicholas Laubitsch and Samuel Ward share the front row with Frederick Schwartz and Anders Meyer in row 2. Then comes Christensen and Jarl Tien for 5 and 6. Behind that, Philip Ansel, Hofrichter 7th and 8th with Kurapar and Neno rounding off your top 10. Dan Muth and Dan Thomas round off the 6th row of the grid with Alexander Vuers and Oostring in 13th and 14th. Then comes Stephen Hobbs and Patrick Faulkner doing a really good job, only a second off pole in 16th. Adam Griefson and Yuka Oya in 17th and 18th. The highest of the Tier 2 drivers, Ben Lewis and Gavin Kelly round off the top 20 with Thorstensen and Hakon Jolkersen in P21 and P22. Then comes Beckhausen, Aaron Oscarson only able to get himself into 24th place with Volbrecht in 25th, and 26th goes Peter Reed. Getting another reminder of how to pronounce his name there in my ear. Jens Vack for Tier 3 and 27th overall, Hofrichter in 28th, and then we've got Vincenzo Forte and Livingston in 29th and 30th place respectively. Couple more drivers to go. We've got Haukson, Howaldson, Zornerix and Marley, and then of course Gunnarsson to round off the 35 car grid that we've got here today ahead of the race in Hockenheim. And I'm very much looking forward to go here. As you can see in the top, we're at round number 3 of the NEEM Clash of Nations. We've got tiers 1, 2 and 3 all out on track together. A rolling start to kick things off. And, well, a lot of championship points, a lot of money at stake here as well. So join me, Zach Sweeney, on the ride. And if you are sort of watching along on the NEEM YouTube channel, make sure you are like, subscribe, turn the bell on for notifications to not miss a single thing that comes your way from the channel. Let me know who you're supporting as well. And yeah, totally butchered your name. Appreciate it. Absolutely fine. No problem whatsoever. I'll get there eventually. But obviously, let me know who you're cheering on for, what nation you're from, where you're watching around the world as well. I, for one, I'm very much looking forward to it. But on home soil, Nicholas Laubish leading the way on home soil in the McLaren 720S. One of the, no, it's the 570S, I should say. The 720 is one of the GT3 cars. It's the 570. I'll get my facts right eventually. That McLaren, one of the nicest looking GT4 cars. It's one of, yeah, it just looks great. The Aston Martin's just in behind that as well. You've then got the Porsches and the Mercedes as well. So a plentiful roster of GT4 machinery to indulge into. As round number 3 of the Northern European Esports Masters Championship is about to get itself underway. The Clash of Nations round 3 rounds off its halfway point of the championship. The iRacing safety car will peel its way into pit lane and will get going here at the Hockenheimring. Laubish will head them on the inside going into turn number 1. Probably the better line to go for, but there you can see lining up in double file, 2x2 Noah's Ark, and we are go here in Hockenheim. A good start from pole position, but there you can see the Aston Martin on the left-hand side trying to go to the outside of turn 1. It's not really the ideal way to go, but he's going to go for it the long way around. Laubish then gets caught, and he is demoted down to second in the opening moments. There you can see the 31 as Carnage in the background, cars off, and it's absolute mayhem as they're ducking left and right, looking for a way to go, but there's no way to avoid that. You've just got to take a stab in the dark. Thorstenson is one of the drivers to get themselves in there. You can see Backhouse as well at MP19, another driver in order to find his way through the absolute mayhem that was. But what a way to start round number 3 as a move for the lead and Carnage in the background. Daniel Thomas moving his way as he side by side trying to find his way inside the top 10. Well, he's already inside the top 10. He wants a little bit more than that. You can see the fight at the front as well. Couple of drivers running themselves side by side. It's 3 wide. The Aston Martin trying to thread the needle through the middle. Dan Thomas on the inside then as he runs his way on the inside of the Porsche. But we've still got 39 minutes of this race left to go, and I'm sure it's not going to be too interested in settling down at all. Christensen in 7th, trying to promote himself potentially up into 6th as the Porsche looks to go to the left-hand side going into the arena section here. A nice way to get a move done if you're able to, and a really good move indeed. Warren Tien then, they're able to lead the way ahead of Laubish, who is in 3rd place. So not the start that the pole sitter would have wanted by any means on home soil, but you can see one by one they all go nose to tail the entirety of this magnificent field of drivers, and so far looking really good. Have noticed, by the way, the 210 of Christensen. He's a tier 2 driver and he's up in 6th place overall, which is absolutely insane from him. And we are getting word as well from race control that 3 drivers who unfortunately have entered using the wrong number on their cars will get a 10-second stop and go for the second offence of logging in with the wrong car number. So that includes a number of drivers, as that is not the way you want to round off your first lap. In the background, I think that's Voivers and potentially Oya as well. No, Oya's fine, able to continue on. But a BMW and a Porsche came to blows on the exit of the final corner and saw one of them having an off-track excursion and a very quick trip to the barrier as well. We've got Tien tumbling down the order down to 7th as well. So not the best of start for him there. You can see that Porsche who didn't really want to get off to the best, starts running a little bit wide into turn 2 as well. There is Loic Neno, who started inside the top 10, and this was the Porsche that crashed with the BMW not too long ago. Not the way, of course, you want to be starting your race, but it's motor racing. Those are the risks you have to accept. We've got Yuka Oya on the inside going into the Spitzker hairpin at turn 6. Works his way up another place. Yao Tien, after losing a couple of places from 2nd place not too long ago, finds himself in 6th, battling away with Ansel and Christensen just ahead in 5th, who's now being promoted up inside the top 5. Stefan Boykhaus on the back, as you can see, of a couple of drivers, and you can see Twan Volbrecht trying to go to the inside of the Mercedes arena section, also and up into 18th place. So trying to pick their way through the carnage. A lot of cars around us, and you know, that is to be expected. We've got 35 of, you know, the nation's best, essentially, those that were able to compete in the time trial competition and were able to move their way into the Clash of Nations. These are picked from, you know, a huge pool of drivers that all want to have that opportunity to represent their nation And it's not going to be easy to fight your way through the pack, because you know you're surrounded by people who are just as, if not even a little bit better than you. So you're always pushing to better yourself, to find that extra tenth of a second or whatever it is. Fastest lap for Nicholas Laubich and his pursuit for first place, as he would like to get that pole position award, well, the position he was in from the start, you know, getting pole position. He'd like to get the lead back after losing it to Samuel Ward in the opening moments, but Ward wants the points for Sweden. He wants to find his way up ahead in the timing order. There you can see in the bottom right, the most positions gained. At the moment, it's Zornerix in 34th. He's in car 34. He's up 10 places from where he started. You've then got the likes of Buchhaus and Volbrecht, Livingston, Gunnison all on 8, Ben Luz and Gerben Kelly up 7 apiece as well. So those were the drivers that were most effective at, you know, fighting their way through the order as effectively as possible. So we've got some Norwegian fans cheering along. We've got Dan Thomas fan. We've got, of course, cheering on the UK. And we've got Samuel Ward leading the way in the 114 Aston Martin Vantage GT4 machine. He's very quickly tailed, though, by Nicholas Laubich, who would like to find his way, as I say, back into the lead of the race. We've then got Meyer, Schwartz, Christensen at the top 5. Have to know, again, that Christensen is a Tier 2 driver, running so well for Norway. Again, the Norwegian driver, up there in 3rd place in the championship as a nation. So they would like to obviously get back onto the back of Germany and the Netherlands if they can. We're going to take another look, though, as to what happened at the start of the race. For those that are now just joining us, you're about to see the carnage that ensued. Following on with Oystring, who I think maybe just, what do you do there, right? Yeah, that, I think it speaks for itself, essentially. Not even Spider-Man is going to be able to react to what's going on there, right? You're not quick enough. These GT4s have not got the aerodynamic capability of avoiding, and humans themselves are not quick enough to react at the carnage that happens there. It is essentially, you either picked the right line or you didn't. I think just that small twitch from that Mercedes there, and it tangles those 4 cars locked together. Then they roll back onto the track. Everyone's slowing down. So many cars behind them. You've got to think that's at least half the grid that are involved in that initial carnage. And, you know, that's half the grid. That's, you know, a good 17 cars that are running towards you at full pelt off the back of a race start. They're all trying to pick up positions themselves. They're not exactly too interested in slowing down. So chances are, yeah, you are going to get ploughed into on the side of your car. And, well, not great. I have just got a message, by the way, from Patrick Falconer, who's not too happy as to how things have gone in the opening moments. I recognise him from another championship that I do. I gave him a message wishing him good luck. And that luck didn't mean much, so if I ever wish you good luck, chances are you're probably not in with a shout of a very good result in the race. There you can see the race results scrolling their way across the top, all the way down to P35, with a couple of drivers unfortunately not really having the best of starts. And yeah, Paddy Faulkner rounding off the 35 car field. Already a number of drivers out of this race, and we've still got 33 minutes and 6 seconds left. The 28 machine of Volbrecht, followed closely by Alexander Vovers, going into Sachs' corner. He's going to be late on the brakes in the BMW. Beautifully done, the German driver, and he picks his way up now into 17th place overall into the S's. Not too hard fought from the Dutchman, as he wasn't really too interested, I suppose, in fighting that one too much, especially when you've got that pack just ahead. The more you fight, the more positions you potentially could lose. This early on in the race, it's not exactly worth it to be fighting tooth and nail for position. Oostring also trying to find his way up if he can. Definitely looking a little bit more, a little bit quicker at this stage, a little bit more in control, a little bit more tidy than the Dutchman ahead, but he would like to find a way through if he can. Then this is probably one of the best opportunities to do so. A little bit further up ahead of this fight, we've got Stefan Buchhaus fighting away for 14th place. Also, as he would be very much interested in promoting himself and getting an extra couple championship points. The Aston Martin pulls out to the right-hand side. The Flying Dutchman, as you can see, representing the colour orange. He pulls alongside the Porsche, and it's the inside line going into the Spitzker hairpin, which probably should see him ahead of Forstensen as he brakes late. The Porsche brakes ever so slightly later, but it's the Aston Martin GT4 that is able to pick his way past. A little bit of a slow exit though, and you can see Thorstensen tries to pick his way through. The Norwegian and the Dutchman go side by side. Truly is a clash of two nations in this fight. Going into the Mercedes arena section, you can see the BMW and the Porsche fighting it away just in behind. Also, as late on the brakes for the Porsche sees him potentially look to go to the inside. They continue their run too wide, but it's the BMW that finds himself just ahead, at least for now. It's Voyers, of course, is round in the background. That is huge. That might well be Volbracht having an off. He's collected one of the Porsches with him. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the 28 machine who came to blows with one of the Porsche drivers and sees himself down a couple of places. Yeah, let's take another look at it. Of course, getting told that we might be able to digest it just that little bit better. Ah, that is unfortunate. An easy mistake to make, obviously, not necessarily to fans' fault, because you know he just got a little bit out of shape, rode the curb, the car bogged down literally ever so slightly, and then the car behind wasn't necessarily anticipating him to slow down as much, got into the rear end of him and tagged him round, and at that point there's not really much you can do to correct that. I'm sure the stewards will be taking a little bit of an extra look at that to decide the better outcome. Of course, they can look at it a million times, and the great thing about sim racing is you can put a camera absolutely anywhere, and the camera we're going to be focusing on is on this three-way fight for the lead. You can see Laubitsch trying to go for the lead, then you can see Meyer as well ducking late to go late on the brakes into the Spitzke hairpin. It's a battle between the two McLarens as Anders Meyer finds his way into second. He might well go for the lead as well. This is not the great exit from Sam Ward, the McLaren you can see on the right-hand side. Nicholas Laubitsch trying to get himself involved, very close, tucked up to the Aston Martin. He pulls himself to the outside, going late on the brakes into the Mercedes arena section. It's late for the Aston Martin. It's potentially later from Anders Meyer, and there you can see Nicholas Laubitsch trying to get the up and under. We've now got 5 cars involved for the lead, and there goes Laubitsch. He's got underneath all 2 of them, and now it's 3 wide going into the Mobile 1 corner, the quickest corner potentially on the track, and it's Nicholas Laubitsch that takes the lead ahead of Anders Meyer and Sam Ward, that has not had a good couple of corners, but he's immediately on the counter-attack. 6 cars now in the fight for the lead. A little bit of contact as around the outside goes Meyer for the lead through the Sachs curve, and now Sam Ward, is he going to be able to pick his way through? I don't quite think so. Going into the final couple of corners, he's going to have to sit station in third, and a beautiful move for Nicholas Laubitsch. Caught me by surprise ever so slightly, it must be said, as he, well, just sent the move. He was bold, brave, brilliant in that display, and did exactly what he needed to do. He waited for that opportunity to strike. He sat back, was patient in that battle, and then as soon as he saw the gap, he didn't hesitate. And that is the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that lack of hesitation. He didn't doubt himself, right? He didn't think, do I go for it? Oh, it's 50-50. He was like, no. Gap for the lead, I'm filling it, and that is exactly what you need as a driver, is to just see that gap, seize that opportunity, and find yourself ahead. We've got Roger Christensen, and I know I said earlier that theoretically a Tier 2 or a Tier 3 driver could win this outright. I said that a little bit as sort of tongue-in-cheek, not expecting it to potentially be a reality, but Christensen is showing some absolutely incredible pace as he looks to go to the outside in that Porsche, around the outside, of course, of Schwartz. He's going to be able to try and do it. He gets his foot down as well. That Porsche very nippy through the slow-speed corners, as it's very much low center of gravity, front end sort of weight, and very quick on the acceleration as well. It's going to give him the inside going into the next braking zone, which should be the most dominant one. Little bit of contact between the two of them is, oh no, Christensen is sent round, and he's pointing the wrong way. He rejoins almost immediately, not into the path of the fellow Aston Martin, and he's tumbled down to the back end of the top 10. We spoke a little bit too soon, braking a little bit too late, and crashing into the side of Frederick Schwartz there. Not the way that he would have wanted that race to go. Let's take another look at it, of course, just to digest it that little bit more. You can see Christensen on the left. This move is on, but he brakes a bit too late, turns it a bit too late as well, and unfortunately crashes into, I believe, his Norwegian countryman as well. Not the way that he would have wanted those previous couple of corners to go, and potentially suffering a little bit of substantial damage to the rear end of that Porsche. Yeah, you can see the steering geometry not looking too good. We've got another crash as well for Patrick Falconer, who tried to get himself back out on circuit, but the car damage is too severe. You can see that is not the way that Aston Martin Vantage GT4 machine rolled off the factory line, and very quickly finds itself rolling into pit lane once again to retire from this race. Back at the front, Nicholas Laubitsch leads the way after a sensational move up and under on both the two behind of Meyer and on Sam Ward. Beautiful move, beautiful racing, and great respect given between 3 fantastic drivers here on the service of iRacing. Anders Meyer under pressure a little bit. Sam Ward wants vengeance and wants that at P2 or even P1 back in the near future. We've got the Dan Thomas fan club present, says Salvatore. We've got Steve Hoff has been given a stop-go for 35 seconds, and he's being asked if it's a mistake. Well, I'm not entirely sure, not quite been given the information regarding that as of yet, but I'm sure whatever it is will be resolved as soon as possible. And yeah, sympathy, I think, going the way of the Norwegian driver of Christensen, who I can see both sides, of course. I mean, he did brake late going into that corner. The move was on. Maybe the Aston Martin could have given a little bit more room in that particular battle, but I'd say more just a racing incident. I think there was more either driver could have done to avoid it. Of course, backing up completely is always a surefire way of not being involved in an incident. But you know, these are racing drivers. You know, you ask Max Verstappen to slow down and not go for a move. He's not going to listen, is he? It's the same for these guys. They're not going to listen, especially when you've only got 40 minutes to get the moves done. You can see Sam Ward there having not the greatest of exits, and the very striking blue Aston Martin will be on his tail very, very soon. Falling down to third place, of course, Samuel Ward, after losing the lead not too long ago. He's under pressure from Schwartz in the, as I say, very blue Aston Martin. I do like to see the different colour schemes sort of on offer for each of the nations, and how they're choosing to best represent their colours, because obviously one of the greatest honours for an athlete is to represent their country, even at the highest level, and even in the world of sim racing. You know, it doesn't have to be the Olympics, doesn't have to be the Formula One or anything like that. The Northern European Esports Masters Championship, the Clash of Nations, is probably one of the perfect ways for these guys to be able to get themselves involved, earn their place as well. These guys, they weren't just cherry-picked from an existing roster. They had to go out there, they had to prove themselves, and they had to put in the lap time in order to be here on the grid today, and to be able to have that opportunity to represent and score points for their country. Sondre Thorstensen in the 3:06 on the back of I've gone with Fevers, I've been told. I've gone for Vevers. I've gone for, yeah, plenty of different ways you can go about that, but I've been told it's Vevers because, yeah, again, my British mind cannot, it cannot cope with so many new pronunciations. So again, give me the next 24 minutes. Give me the next 24 minutes. I've been reassured. I've been motivated, so it's all good. Give me the next 24 minutes and 8 seconds, and I'll hopefully have each and every single one of these pronunciations down. I did go through the entry list. I did very crazily speak to myself and go over the pronunciations, but as a commentator, obviously, very different doing it in your bedroom. Well, I'm still doing it in my bedroom, but very different being sat there off live where no one can hear you, going through it, being able to mess it up as many times as you like, to then having to commit on a broadcast. But thankfully, I've got Teamman in my ear to very quickly and very swiftly give me a helping hand if I need it. So I very much do appreciate it. I've been treated very nicely here. Of course, stepping in for Luke Crane, who I've worked with him for a number of times now, and have known him for about a year as well. Side by side as well, just in the background of this battle, just in behind Thorstensen, you can see the fight for 15th place between the Aston Martin and the Porsche, of course, between the likes of Beckhaus and Oyer, as the two of them would like to find themselves inside the top 15, because again, you know, it just sounds better. To finish in the top 15 sounds a little bit better than to finish in the top 16. It's sort of those milestones of racing. Like, obviously the first one, the big one, is winning. Everyone wants to win. You know, that's the first milestone. Then it's the podium, sort of for some, second or third. They don't really care, because the podium's a podium. And then, of course, you got the top 5. Again, for me, top, you know, 4th or 5th, doesn't really matter. It's still the top 5 at the end of the day. Then you've got the top 10, 15, 20, 25, whatever the, you know, the next big milestone is for you in that race. And each of these drivers will have their own milestones. For a lot of them, it's, I want to go out there, I want to, you know, get my share of that $2.5 grand prize pool that will be dished out to the Clash of Nations champion of any of the 8 nations that we've got. At the moment, it is the Netherlands that is leading the way in the championship, so could well be them. So all those Dutch drivers out there would like to sort of prove it, get those points, get their share, however the Netherlands wants to dish out that prize money at the end of the season. But for some, it could just be out here to have some fun. You know, at the end of the day, this is a hobby. This is pretend race cars on a pretend racetrack. They'd like to, you know, just go out there, have some fun. You know, learn some new tactics, new racing dynamics. You know, meet some new people as well. You know, how many of these people would they meet if it wasn't for sim racing? How many friendships and contacts would they bond with over the course of the few months that they're here with the Clash of Nations? You know, if it wasn't for sim racing. So for some, it's, you know, just an opportunity to go out there, have some fun, and to be in that competitive nature. And yeah, obviously money's always a bonus. No one's going to say no to an extra couple euros in your back pocket at the on the 23rd of December, right before Christmas, as I say. You know, not a bad way. You can treat your whoever to something nice, or yourself. You know, most importantly, get yourself a Christmas present. Might want to buy yourself an advent calendar or whatever you want to do with your money. Buy yourself a kebab. Again, it's not my money, so do what you like with it, essentially. But anyway, back at the front, Sam Ward would like to be finding himself and treating himself to a second place ahead of Anders Meyer, as Nicholas Laubish is running away with things, 2 seconds clear of the rest of the field as we approach the halfway mark of this race. Up and over the sausage curbs there you saw from Sam Ward as he rode up. The car obviously reacted quite sufficiently and 2 wheels went up into the air. Thankfully though, he's all good as he's still very firmly on the back of the McLaren 570S, not the 720S. I was about to say it's very easy to get them too confused. It's not. I just had a blonde moment. We're all good. But as it stands, the fight for second is raging on really, really nicely. And Meyer, Ward, Schwartz, Tien, Thomas, we've got Kirkepa, Ansel, and Hofrichter all involved in this train, which no complaints from me whatsoever. Very much enjoying it. Nose to tail, pretty much this entire train all the way back to Hofrichter in 9th place. But as we approach the halfway point, is anyone going to be coming in for their first scheduled stop of the race so far? Of course, we've seen plenty of people in the pit lane. We haven't seen anyone actually go for a normal pit stop yet. Just to remind you guys who are only just joining us, or if you are new to the Clash of Nations, it's a 40-minute race. They have a mandatory 4-tyre pit stop they have to take. They don't need to take fuel necessarily. They can, if they wish, I suppose, do half of a tank for the first half and, you know, another half for the second half, or they can just run it continuously on 1 full tank of fuel and only change tyres. But when do you change tyres? Do you go a lap early and try and get a lap on some fresh tyres relative to your rivals? Might not be a bad idea for some of these guys in this train. You know, they might be able to get on a fresh set of boots and you know, make up a good couple of places, because say a new fresh set of tyres gains you half a second a lap, boom, half a second's probably going to get you at least 2 of these cars, you know, over the course of your pit window or whatever it is. Or do you go maybe a lap longer and have those fresher tyres later on in the race for a later dash towards the finish line? That could again be another thing for these guys to consider. And even in a 40-minute race, that 4-tyre strategy still plays a factor. It's still a big thing, and it might be quite a uniform thing. Everyone might come in on the same lap, whatever. But even the small trivial things like getting into the pit lane, you don't really practice your pit lane entries, do you? You know, everyone focuses on their apexes and their entries and their exits and their racing. But how many of you, hand on heart, can say you practiced a pit entry? You know, going in, that's a corner. That pit entry it's a corner. It's got an apex. It's got a braking point. It's got an exit point. You still have to take that as quick as you can if you want to succeed. And then the pit limit line as well. How late do you brake in order to get yourself into the pit lane? Dan Thomas will be hoping that it's late enough to get it slowed down and into the pit lane, onto the jacks. And Dan Thomas is one of the first of the lead group in order to take his mandatory 4-tyre pit stop. But again, even just getting into his box, you know, if he undershot, overshot, it's then stopping, realizing, correcting, stopping again. And all in that time of your brain trying to process the information and react, you've lost a good couple of seconds. And very much those couple of seconds could be the difference between winning, losing a podium, those points that could end up being the deciding factor later on in the season. And yeah, good point made in the YouTube chat as well. Sim racing combines so many things together, and it is such an amazing thing because, you know, you've got that natural skill of driving, which no other sport can have in a simulation. I mean, football, basketball, tennis, you can't really emulate that. You know, on a controller, you might learn the theory base behind things as Sam Ward is fighting away with Schwartz and Tien in the fight for 4th. He's had an incident. We'll check the replay in just a second, but running their way through the Mercedes Arena section, this is what happened to Sam Ward. He went for the move for second, broke way too late, went in deep, lost the positions immediately. It was a good effort, but it saw himself losing himself down to 5th, and he's now on a fight back. He's managed to get his way back past Tien, and now is on the pursuit for Schwartz. But Sam Ward not had a good run of things after previously leading the race going into lap 1, turn 1. Back to the point, obviously, you know, football, basketball, tennis, they can't emulate what they're actually doing in real life. Whereas sim racing, you know, you're turning a steering wheel, you're pushing pedals, you are doing exactly the same as what the real life counterparts are doing. You have to learn how to, you have to obviously then build your setups, obviously not necessarily in this format, you have to build the setups and things, but and obviously networking, learning, all the tracks and stuff, but Dan Move, unfortunately, not getting the best run of things going into the final sector. We're just going to tick off a few highlight reels of the first half of the race and see what has happened further down the grid as well. We've got Stefan Buchhaus braking a little bit too late going into the Spitzker hairpin, runs himself too wide and loses a number of positions, 3 in the end. And now we've got Forte, the 207 machine, going again into the Spitzker hairpin already. That car didn't look too pretty. Already he's got damage. It seems like the wheel alignment is off, maybe too excessive toe in or toe out, and it just seems the car wasn't responsive at all to his inputs. He didn't really want to turn into that corner whatsoever, and immediately had that instability under braking. Back to the live action though. Niklas Laubich leads Anders Meyer by 2.7 seconds. Yet to make his pit stop though, and when he does, I'm fairly sure that he's entered under a different number than he is obviously racing at the moment. He's entered under the 103 and he's racing the 6, so potentially Niklas Laubich could be one of those drivers that we mentioned earlier on that could have a 10-second stop and go penalty when he reaches that pit lane sequence. So maybe trying to delay it as much as possible to build as big of a gap as possible and to limit the damage if he can. Not the way that he would have wanted things to go by any stretch of the imagination. Continuing yet on for another lap. Any other changes in the background? Anders Meyer, Schwartz, Ward, any one of them interested in coming in? No, not quite. So, of course, we saw Daniel Thomas come in a couple of laps ago. He's going to have a couple of laps in pocket here, where not only has he got clear air, you know, he's got no other cars around him. Granted, maybe he's not got slipstream or anything like that, but he's got himself some fresh tyres. Not only that, he's got some decent pace in pocket as well. He could find himself maybe getting himself back involved in this fight and maybe getting himself sort of up a couple of places in this race as well. But these guys stretching it as long as possible could well be a game of cat and mouse or whatever, a reactionary thing as Alexander Vivers into the pit lane for BMW, pointing it outwards already, nails his pit stop in all fairness. And there is Daniel Thomas in that Mercedes AMG GT4 machine. Is he going to be able to benefit from that pit lane? And we're being told, of course, you can see clear air behind and in front, so he's free to push. And pushing, he definitely much is. Look at the speed and the commitment that he's carrying, clobbering the inside curb there at turn number 1, playing beautifully within the track limits. But once again, back to the fight at the front because it's not going absolutely anywhere. I touched on the fact it potentially is a game of cat and mouse, sort of I go, you go. Are these guys just going to react to what the other person in front of them does? Is it a game of bluff? Or is this purely the strategy that these guys came into this race knowing they were going to go for? Schwartz on the back of Anders Meyer. He's got Samuel Ward and Tien and Kirkepa all queuing up behind him in a decent 5-car fight for second place. So plenty of action still to come in the final 13 minutes and 36 seconds of the race here today. Another lap, no more pitters in the form of this top fight. So stretching these times really long. I suppose not necessarily really long because, say, in an endurance race or whatever, the GT4s would quite comfortably go for a stint of sort of an hour or even more on a set of tyres. So maybe not drastic in terms of the tyre wear. Again, sort of in the in the pre-show before we jumped into qualifying, we saw that the track temp itself isn't drastic. These tyres aren't screaming for help, so tyre deg not massive. So potentially these tyres are still, you know, very much within their working window, still quite fresh, still quite quick. So maybe that's the reason they're not coming in. Of course, these guys know a lot better than I do. I was dreadful when I jumped into iRacing, so you know, don't take whatever I say with a pinch of salt. And also look at this amazing battle because we've got Meyer under a ton of pressure. The Aston Martin of Frederick Schwartz is going to try and go to the inside of the Spitzker hairpin, but it's around the outside from the McLaren 570S that keeps his foot in, gets the exit, and might well be able to keep that second place. Schwartz, though, is going to keep monitoring on that inside one, going through the kink towards the Mercedes Arena section. Not quite close enough now, but the inside could very much open up. The 31 machine, he's later on the brakes, and Meyer gives him the space. They come close to contact, but push to the outside of the circuit. here is Anders Meyer, and he chucks the move back to the inside of the following corner. Sam Ward now back involved. He gets the up and under. Could we see another three-wide moment going into the Mobil 1 curve? In the middle is Meyer. They fly in formation. Inside line for Sam Ward as he tries to chuck the move for second place. He's done exactly that. It turns to the outside going into the Sachs curve, but now you've got Schwartz trying to go for the inside. Meyer the long way round, as not quite able Meyer on the inside, I should say. It's Ward trying to go the long way round. He's the one that's able to keep his foot in and get himself into second place. Beautifully done. Great respect. Tien finds himself through, and a lot of them, 3 of them biting the bullet. We've got Schwartz, Tien and Kirkupa all running their way into pit lane. Now the race is on. These guys trying to go potentially for the undercut, and very much so. This battle is costing them time, so I think the 3 of these, well now 4 of them as well, as Hofrichter decides to come into pit lane on this particular lap as well. They said, get me out of this, right? No, not happening at all. Get me out of this fight, get me some clear air, and they're going to be pushing like crazy, hoping that the likes of Ward and Schwartz continue to fight in front. That would be ideal. As you can see, a very short stop just ahead of him. I think that was one of the backmarker cars that were already in the pit lane, still waiting for the 4 of them to change tyres. You've then got as well Oya coming into the pit lane from 9th, losing the place to Ustring, who I don't think has had a pit lane run through just yet. There is our race leader, Nicholas Laubich, who we think is going to be taking a stop-go penalty. Getting told that obviously he wasn't the one that has the penalty. It's Steve Hobbs and Aaron Oscarson that got the 10-second penalty. Getting told that Laubich is in the clear for now, but still, as a driver, you cannot be living in that fear. As straight down the inside is Daniel Thomas. We knew that he was going to benefit from the undercut, and he might well have done now. He's on the inside of Meyer. Tien chucks his way through, gets the better run in that Mercedes as well, finds himself side by side with Daniel Thomas, and now these guys are the ones with the advantage. They've got the fresher tyres through the Parabolica, side by side, 2 rows of 2, and now look for Anders Meyer, who's going to go to the right-hand side, gets pushed to the inside from the Mercedes, who's not quite just ahead of Tien, who's later on the brakes, but look for Anders Meyer as well. The Porsche of Kirkupa trying to go the long way around of not 1 but 2 cars, caught up over the curb as well. The McLaren 570S off the road for Tien, who has to tuck him behind, and it's Anders Meyer that leads this train of 4. Dan Thomas falling behind the 3 of them after what was initially an incredible lap laps I should say, of clear air. Bit of contact as Kirkupa runs into the rear end of Tien. Fastest lap as well for Nicholas Laubich in this race, and well, as I say, you can't live in that security. If you know you've done something wrong and you know the stewards are looking at you, you've still got to drive as fast as possible. He had a gap. He needs to make a 10-second stop go. Well, yeah, I think he's waiting. I think he's stretching the stint, waiting for that 10-second stop go to come in, because you don't want to make it twice. But it might not even come. He doesn't need to make one, we're being told. He's in the clear, completely in the clear. So he's all good, everything is fine. He's not going to be getting a 10-second penalty. And we're being told it's because of the first-time offence. So the others have done it before, which means it's no longer a slap on the wrist. It's, mate, we told you once, we're not telling you twice. That's a penalty. Laubich, he's got his chance. This is his slap on the wrist. This is his don't do it again, basically. He's all good, he's in the clear. This race is his to go for the victory. So essentially, the reason he's going so long is because the tyres are still fresh. We've got another crash for Stefan Beckhaus, who has just lit up the rears on the exit of the Sachs curve and finds himself down in P31. A couple of pit stops as well. We had Schwartz and Ward come into the pit lane. They have rejoined in the fight with the rest of the drivers. And there is Stefan Beckhaus, who made 2 big fatal mistakes on 1 lap and in the span of just a couple of corners. Nicholas Laubich finally comes into the pit lane for his pit stop. Going to take 4 tyres. He's 54 seconds clear of Anders Meyer. Has he got enough time in pocket to return into the lead? My best guess is yes. I think with that fastest lap, the tyres definitely still had some life left in them. He should, in theory, be okay. You can see jostling for position is Tien and Schwartz in that fight for 3rd. Schwartz finding himself ahead just for now, and we're basically eagerly anticipating that battle as it unfolds on the timing tower. Ward and Kirkupa as well, not too far away from each other in the fight for 5th, and Thomas as well getting himself involved. So plenty of action as Nicholas Laubich leaves the pit lane, leaves his pit stall, gets himself up to racing speed, and the rest of them nowhere really in sight. Yeah, you can see, not even run their way through turn number 1 yet. There is Anders Meyer in 2nd, so a long way back of the rest of the field. They've lost so much time battling away, and Laubich has just said, cheers, boys. and was just like, sweet, awesome, this is my race now to go for the win. He took that pole position, he lost the lead in the early stages, and now the German driver here at the German track of the Hockenheimring is looking very, very pretty for a race victory. Of course, as well, because he went further into the race, I think he potentially had, it depends if, you know, the other drivers had to refuel or whatever. Maybe Laubich, if he had to refuel, because he went longer, had less fuel to put back in, potentially. I don't know how he's managed to get in and out of pit lane so quick, but it was a quick time. And, well, of course, those asking in YouTube chat, yes, he did do tyres. He had to have done tyres. Otherwise, he'll probably get a very big slap on the wrist. He's already had one for entering in the wrong numbers. But if he hasn't taken tyres, he's not fulfilled the mandatory requirements of this race. You need to take a 4-tyre pit stop. But we did see him go onto the jacks, so I'm going to assume that he did go and change his 4 tyres and is now basically home free for what is probably the final 3-4 laps of this race left to go. We're running about 1 minute 45-ish in qualifying. There's 6 minutes left to go. So yeah, probably 3 more laps or so at the line. I think maybe 4. Oh, it'll be, I think 4. I think it'll be 4 at the line to go with 6 minutes left. We'll find out. Obviously, my maths is not great because I'm a commentator and never trust a commentator's maths. You will hear all of us say it. I'm sure Luke has probably already said it at some point during this championship as well. If he hasn't, he will later on when he actually has to do maths with the points and things. But back at this fight, we've got Rup Kakapa fighting away with Tien and Anders Meyer, who's been able to build a couple of seconds margin, about 1.5 seconds back to the rest of the field, bridging that gap, building the gap to the rest of the drivers, and basically just separating himself from the rest of that pack, because you've got 6 cars that are all going to be very interested in giving each other a nice little bit of a battle. I don't think Meyer wants any part of it, not because he's boring and doesn't want to have fun, more because he wants that 2nd place secure and in the bag. So that fight for 3rd will be one that's going to be very interesting. Gerben Kelly looking very interesting in his power slides on the exit of the final corner, very nicely well held. The Flying Dutchman, the 208, up in 13th place. As it stands, is the 2nd highest Tier 2 rated drivers. It's Vivas, who isn't a million miles away, about a 2nd ahead of him. So we've got a lead fight for Tier 2 going on. But of course, the points, it's not 1st and 2nd points, it's 12th and 13th points, if you understand what I mean. So they're not fighting for Tier 2 points, they're fighting for overall points. They just so happen to be racing for the Tier 2 lead, if you sort of understand me. I'm being told, actually, potentially the car didn't rise. Maybe I was seeing things. Maybe you guys have got better eyes than me. Maybe you guys should have my job. But maybe the car didn't go onto the jacks. Well, I don't know. We'll get the information and I'll pass it on to you as soon as I can. But it's strange if he hasn't taken all 4 tyres. But he has a 20... Yeah, to be fair, what was the gap when he came in? There he is. He's coming back into the pit lane. So maybe, you know, of course, maybe he didn't select tyres. Maybe he didn't press change tyres. Maybe Nicholas Laubich is going to lose the race lead, and that really spicing things up in that fight for 2nd. He's back into the pit lane. He's onto the jacks. He's going to be stationary for however long. Well, definitely enough time to lose the lead. Anders Meyer is now going to inherit, and as I say, that increases the stakes almost tenfold for those guys in behind of Tien, Kirkeper, Thomas, Ward, Hofrichter and Schwartz, and also Ansel as well in the mix, all separated by no more than 0.5 seconds or so between all of them. Laubich has thrown this race away right at the tail end of it, only a handful of laps left to go, and the German driver has bottled the race lead for whatever reason. However, well, yeah, about 35 seconds. It's going to drop there at 35-ish seconds, 36 as he goes. And that was his stop for tyres. Wow. Okay, fair play, guys. Yeah, that is insane. He didn't get a stop and go because he was in the clear, as I say. It was a slap on wrist. It was his first offence. He didn't get a stop and go for any of the wrong numbers. He hasn't done anything wrong during the race. He has 100% just stopped in his own for 4 tyres. That is it. That is the done and dusted. He didn't take tyres at his first stop. He had to pit again. And unfortunately, it was been a costly mistake that sees him down from the lead into 9th. Anders Meyer then for Norway on their pursuit for the Clash of Nations Championship are leading the way. 1 and 2 as well, it must be said, at Tien just in behind. So some huge points gain for Norway. if they're able to consolidate this race win. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough. I'm being told. Yeah, so basically what we've been told is that Lawich made the mistake, realised he made a mistake, but was essentially let off because he was still able to pit within an allocated time, take the tyres before sort of, he can't pit the tyres on the final lap, essentially, I think is what that is trying to say. He can't pit, take the tyres and then cross the line whilst in the pit lane. So he had to do it, you know, before the penultimate lap of the race, essentially. So yeah, huge news. We've now got a number of drivers bumped up in position. The stakes have been risen. We've got a lapped car in the mix as well, holding a couple of drivers up. Kirkup potentially going for the move for P2, as Dan Thomas, plenty of drivers cheering in for him in the YouTube chat. He's going to be wanting that podium place if he can help it. The 115 has driven a beautiful race, and there could well be the move. Kirkup going on the move for second versus Tien. And now, what is Dan Thomas going to have as a say in all of this? Tien on the inside, Kirkup trying to go the long way round. Is he going to be able to keep his foot in, though, is the question. Up and under, potentially, for Dan Thomas, as he's not quite able to, though, emerge in single file. But Tien under a ton of pressure, allowing Anders Meyer to get away in this race. Jarl Tien is going to want to consolidate this 1 and 2 for Norway if he has any say in it whatsoever. A minute left to go. We're on the penultimate lap of round number 3 of the Northern European Esports Masters Clash of Nations Tier 1 to 3 here at the Hockenheimring. What a way to round off the first half of this brilliant championship. All of these drivers have fought tooth and nail in order to be here to represent their country today. And as it stands, it's Norway that are the ones to beat. 40 seconds on the clock, 1 lap here to go. It's Anders Meyer's leading the way, but Jarl Tien, Kirkup, Thomas, Ward, the top 5, with Hofrichter and Schwartz and also Ansel now into the mix. All of them nose to tail, all of them with a very small potential chance of taking a podium place. 2 spots left on it. They round the curve for the penultimate time. We've got a handful of corners, essentially. With each corner that ticks down, it's 1 less opportunity for these drivers in order to consolidate a win. There you can see burning the flag around, waving that white flag to signify us to our last tour around this historic, prestigious circuit. There is Nicholas Lawich, who is going to be kicking himself in sheer frustration that he was unable to be involved in that lead fight, because he was doing such a good job. A small mistake, easy mistake to make. I mean, we've all been there, right? You know, he's only human. Those mistakes are going to happen. Are there going to be any mistakes in this fight for second? We've got Tien, not really sure which way to go. Does he want the inside? Does he want the outside? Kirkup is going to decide for him and pull out to the left-hand side. His Norwegian countryman of Anders Meyer is trying to help Tien as best he can by giving him the slipstream, the up and under potentially from the Porsche as they run their way through the Spitzke hairpin for the final time. Their biggest opportunity is now in the books. Tien, surely that means that this P2 is looking stronger and stronger. As I say, each corner goes by is 1 less opportunity to be overtaken, but it's also 1 more corner of built-up frustration the driver behind would want to vent out as soon as possible. I'm sure it's all going to be kept in the confines of the track, but with 1 sector left to go in this race, is Kirkup going to be able to go for the move? Does he want to? I mean, P2, P3 is the podium at the end of the day. How much does he want that second place? It seems to be quite a lot as he tries to send the move to the inside of the Sachs curve, but it's not quite enough. And now they've got the S's, the 2 corners at the end of the circuit to go. I don't quite think that Tien is going to be able to be beaten here unless there's an amazing move for second on the hands. And through the final corner, it's Anders Meyer that inherited the lead after Nicholas Lawich's mistakes. He's going to take the victory here at the Hockenheimring for round number 3 of the Clash of Nations. It's a Norwegian 1 and 2. With Meyer and Tien 1 and 2 in this race, with Kirkup narrowly missing out on second, less than a 1/10 of a second between the 2 of them on that run to the line. We've then got Daniel Thomas and Sam Ward that round off the top 5, with Ben Lewis all the way back here in P11, fighting away with Vivas and Kelly for P11. That run to the line, it's going to be Vivas that takes the victory in Tier 2, with Kelly in second and Muth rounding off the podium as well. A little bit further down, it's Sondre Thorstensen for Tier 3 in 17th overall, so running a really strong race when you think about it. And he's going to take victory in the Tier 3 race as well. What a display of racing that we've seen here, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk you through all of the racing action as well. And I'm very glad that Luke Crane gave me the call up and said, mate, are you free on Saturday? Because yeah, I very much enjoyed every second of that. It's never easy, particularly commentating by yourself, but These guys made it as simple as possible by just giving me the action. I didn't really have to waffle too much. I just called the cars as they were running because that's all I had to do. These guys gave us the action. We'll run your way through the final grid order and the finishing order of these drivers. And Anders Meyer, fair play. What a drive, I have to say. It was very respectable. Again, he was aggressive, he was concise, he was consistent when he needed to be. And people might be saying, oh, he's lucky because Laubish made the mistake or whatever it is. And Laubish should have won that race. But it's motor racing, and you can't live in shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's only the absolutes. It's only what you have control of in the present. And so many times in racing, you have to make your own luck. It could have been anyone in that second place when Laubish made the mistake and had to pit again. It could have been Tien, it could have been Kirkapa, Thomas. But no, it's Anders Meyer, and he was the one that reaped the rewards of that mistake. He drove well, he drove fast, consistent, and aggressive. And he's able to take the victory here for the halfway point of this amazing season. Getting told that everyone has been able to find their way across the line, and we'll run you through the final grid order of this race. And obviously, confirmation, the first half of the Clash of Nations are in the books. I can tell you for free, it was Anders Meyer that took the victory. But as soon as we can, we'll bring you up the results. There they are. Meyer ahead of Jartien, a Norwegian 1 and 2. It's Kirkapa for Finland that rounds off the top 3 with Daniel Thomas and Samuel Ward rounding off the top 5. Then comes Lucas Hofrichter picking his way up into 6th with Schwartz, Ansel, Laubish and Griefson, the top 10 point scorers in this race. Of course, behind that, you've got the likes of Ben Lewis, Alexander Vivers and Gerben Kelly that were in a three-way fight all the way to the end. Vivers and Kelly, the top 2 in Tier 2, with Daniel Muth rounding off the podium in Tier 2 as well. Jukka Oja, Jeremy Oostring just in behind that, with Sondre Thorstensen rounding off the victory for Tier 3 in 17th overall. Once again, proving some very, very good points for his country. Hakan Jolkersen in P18 with Peter Reed, I should say, in P19, and Pascal, the other Hofrichter, in 20th place, because that's not confusing whatsoever. Those are all still managing to finish on the lead lap. Behind that, we've got the Dutchman himself, Volpecht, in 21st. Livingston just in behind that in 22nd. Christensen, after a top 5 was on the cards, an unfortunate mistake and a racing incident, sees him in 23rd place, with Stephen Hobbs after his 10-second stop and go 24th. Hodgson rounds off the top 25 with Zonnerix and Haraldson, the last of those that finished on the lead lap. Then comes Torbjörn Mahler, Gunnarsson and Oscarsson in the top 30, all a lap down. Then we come to our DNFs. We've got Vac, Beckhaus, Neno, Forte and Falconer that were all unable to finish the race within a couple of laps of the leader, some of them doing so in the pit lane. Ladies and gentlemen, what a race that was. You can see the North European Esports Masters Clash of Nations Championship here on the iRacing service. Of course, all in GT4s, 8 nations battling their way around. We've rounded off our 3rd round of 6, and there's 12,500 euros of cash prizes available. But what are we looking forward to next is the question. We'll go to round number 4 on October the 28th. Time trials will be open to pretty much anyone over the course of October 5th to the 18th. So if you're pretty nifty in the GT4s and you want to get yourself involved, and you want to represent one of those 8 countries, of course, that battle their way through the Northern European Esports Masters and get yourself involved, we'll be heading the home of British Motorsport at Silverstone before we head our way to round 5 and round 6 to round off the season. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to talk you through the racing here today, ladies and gentlemen. My name has been Zach Sweeney. Thank you for the warm welcome. Of course, it's been, as I say, a pleasure. I've been standing in for the big man himself, Luke Crane. So, big shoes to fill, essentially, but I'm glad that he's given me this opportunity. Tim and Klaus behind the scenes, giving you the broadcast, pointing the cameras exactly where they need to, and again, helping me very nicely with all the pronunciations if/when. Well, I say if/when, definitely when I've needed them. And of course, thank you to you guys at home for watching along, commenting in the YouTube chat, and, well, for making sure that I've had a very comfortable ride here, but an amazing championship, amazing bits of racing, and I definitely have not been disappointed whatsoever. Hopefully, one day, potentially, I'll be back in the future, but I'll be leaving you once again in the very capable hands of Luke Crane for the rest of this season. It's been an absolute pleasure, as I say once again. Thank you for having me. And in the meantime, between the gap between round 3 and round 4, get yourself involved in that time attack, and we'll see you again in Silverstone. Take care, and goodbye.